Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. You're welcome to stand, but I'm going to start talking anyways. Welcome to the 2015 ICCF U.S. Congressional International Conservation Gala. Thank you all for joining us this evening to celebrate extraordinary leadership in international conservation.
Before you sit down, I'd ask you to stand, please, for the presentation of the colors by the United States Marine Corps Color Guard from the Marine Barracks here in Washington, followed by our national anthem. Then Reverend Patrick Conroy, chaplain of the United States House of Representatives, will deliver the invocation.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the presentation of colors.
Let us pray. God of all creation, we give you thanks for the wonder of your creation and for this opportunity to come together to break bread. We recognize our shared need to be sustained in our lives and to be nourished. We thank you that you have honored us by calling us to engage in the great work of conserving the earth, from its oceans to its fields and forests. Nothing continues in existence that is not held in the palm of your hand, and no living thing, we are certain, can continue to exist on this earth unless its resources are carefully and properly nurtured by us. Help us to care for this great creation, to protect our fields and streams from toxic substances introduced by human action that we now understand to be destructive of our environment, and the climate of this earth, which is changing dramatically all around us. We thank you for this time we have here together and for the presence of our special guest, Prince Charles. Bless him for his care of your creation. Help us all to be grateful always for your wondrous bounty, and help us never to take for granted the gift that is your creation. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Father, and to the United States Marine Corps Color Guard. Next, I would like to welcome onto the stage the President of the International Conservation Caucus Foundation, who are the host of this event. Ladies and gentlemen, the President, Mr. John Gant.
Please be seated. Welcome to ICCF's 2015 U.S. Congressional International Conservation Gala. The theme of this year's gala is Extraordinary Leadership in Conservation, and there is no better example of this type of outstanding leadership than within the U.S. Congressional International Conservation Caucuses in the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives. ICCF is proud to have supported these caucuses and their leadership over the past decade. Over the past 2.5 years, ICCF has taken the successful model of the caucus and begun exporting it to parliaments and congresses around the world. As these caucuses have flourished, we have established ICCF headquarters in Africa and Latin America to support their work. In partnership with the Global Environment Facility, we will build 6 more caucuses over the next 2 years in Africa. Working with these caucuses in the United States and internationally, we have accomplished a number of significant achievements over the last year, including supporting members of the U.S. Senate in ratifying 4 treaties to prevent illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing, supporting members of our Kenyan caucus in drafting a new Wildlife Management Act, which was signed into law by the President of Kenya in December 2013, and which sets forth significantly harsher penalties for illegal wildlife traffickers. We've also been supporting the Colombian Conservation Caucus to formulate and deliver new water management policies to the people of Colombia and the region. And maybe our most proud achievement is hosting a regional wildlife conference in Arusha, Tanzania, that led to the signing by 7 nations of the historic Arusha Declaration of 2014, as well as several other multinational agreements to combat wildlife crime across national borders. None of these successes would have been possible without the extraordinary leadership demonstrated by government leaders, business leaders, and policymakers, committed to sustainably managing their natural resources for this and future generations. Tonight, we are here to honor individuals and organizations that have demonstrated outstanding leadership in conservation, including His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, and International Paper. We also welcome and thank all of the leaders from the public and private sectors who have worked closely with us over the past decade to make our many successes possible. We would especially like to thank our partners AngloGold Ashanti, Bumblebee Seafoods, SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment, Global Environment Facility, Volkswagen Group of America, and Great Car Foundation. I would also like to thank our friend and board member, George O'Neill, for sculpting the beautiful award to be presented to His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, and to thank Cindy Murphy and board member Jory Butler-Kent for all their support in putting together this gala. We would also like to recognize a number of ambassadors and foreign dignitaries who are with us here tonight from the African Union Commission, Australia, Bahamas, Barbados, Botswana, Brazil, Burundi, Colombia, Costa Rica, the Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis, Fiji, Gabon, Ghana, India, Israel, Jordan, Malawi, Monaco, Mozambique, Namibia, Paraguay, the Republic of Congo, Thailand, Uganda, the United Kingdom, and Zambia. I'm also very pleased to welcome a delegation of our friends from the Colombian Conservation Caucus who have traveled to Washington specifically to be with us here this evening. The President of the Senate of Colombia, Jose David Name, Senator Rosemary Martinez, Vice President of the House of Representatives, Sandra Ortiz, and Representative Jack Housney. I would also like to thank Claudia McMurray, a dear friend of ICCF, who, without her help and support, we would not be able to award and thank His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales here. I would now like to thank all of you for being here tonight, and very much hope that you'll enjoy this evening's program.
I would like now to welcome on stage one of the co-chairs of the International Conservation Caucus and distinguished member of the House Appropriations Committee, the Honorable Betty McCollum, representative from Minnesota.
Well, good evening. On behalf of my colleagues in Congress who support the work of the International Conservation Caucus Foundation, I'm delighted to be here to celebrate with you this evening. Tonight, we are honored to have their Royal Highnesses, the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall with us. The exemplary leadership and conservation shown by His Royal Highness will be recognized tonight with the ICCF Teddy Roosevelt International Conservation Award. I would like to extend my appreciation to David Barron and John Grant and for all the foundation staff, as well as many of the corporate and NGO partners who made the foundation a force for positive change in the halls of Congress and around the world. The ICCF has established partnerships all over the world, from parliamentarians to corporate executives, from village leaders to the Prince of Wales, and with the goal of advancing conservation agenda that is urgently needed. Preventing illegal wildlife trafficking is now an international policy priority, in large part due to the work of ICCF and David Barron. But there is no time to waste. We all must join together to save the planet's most iconic species as they face extinction at the hands of poachers and criminal organizations. This is a battle that brings us all together tonight, from across the political spectrum, to stand united. It can be easy to get distracted in the weeds, but what we need is to bring conservatives and liberals together to work with our international partners in these two key areas. First, we need to improve training resources for law enforcement on the ground to immediately and effectively address these criminal networks. And secondly, we need improved development models to ensure that the presence of wildlife adds value and quality of life improvements to the relevant communities. As part of this ongoing effort to educate and promote the action of the poaching crisis, the ICCF and Mission Blue have co-produced a documentary series entitled The Endgame, and it's shot in real time. The Endgame covers the poaching and illegal wildlife trafficking crisis, focusing on elephants, from across three major fronts: the killing fields in Africa, the markets in China, and the pressure point right here in Washington, D.C. And so in the great tradition of ICCF, inspiring all of us to action, I present to you the endgame.
No wildlife agency or department in the world was set up to meet the challenges of rebel armies, transnational organized crime, and international terrorist organizations. But that is exactly what they've been asked to do.
Why those animals being poached, or why those guys after those animals, it's all because there's a marketing here. And people are buying those ivory.
Priorities you would like to see us focused on. This is the right thing to do. It helps people, it benefits us economically and culturally, and it is essential to our national security.
It's gone to the point where we just need massive activity to head it off.
We're not going to have elephants left in Central Africa anywhere.
Once we can find evidence of payments being made between one criminal and another, we can identify where the assets are being stored.
I remember thinking, damn, somebody's got to do something about that. Who knew? A year later, it'd be me.
So when I sit down with a leader, I talk straight.
Mr. President.
Hey there.
I am not even congratulating.
And they, you know, most of them appreciate it. Some of them get prickly.
Almost 2,000 elephants, dead.
Now we have a very difficult situation to manage. Of these 3 people that we've caught, 2 are pygmies. One of them's a 15-year-old. This guy is an abused child. He's a slave, basically.
Apollinaire that they're talking about, he's one of the other big coordinators. I heard about him. He's up in the north with Abdullah and Obama. There was a number of the pygmies told the wardens up in the north that if they came back across the border into Cameroon without ivory, they'd be killed.
$600 vouchers and more being poisoned from one carcass. Poachers poison the carcass because they don't want them to indicate to those in authority that a poisoning has happened. So that's why the poachers usually poison the vultures.
It's like a genocide site. In terms of elephants, that's what's going on. They destabilize fragile governments. They oppress, they brutalize, they rape and pillage vulnerable people on a massive scale. What's the LRA all about? We know they run ivory. We know it. They do it because they can make money at it.
She's coming, she's coming, she's coming, she's coming, she's coming, she's coming. Sometimes, no, she's fine, she's fine. She's just playing. She's playing. Because you think she's very serious and there's something happening, but it's only a joke. And if you don't
understand that in China, there is a big market for ivory.
Unfortunately, yes, it is. We try tell people, we need to stop that.
Three, two, one. Basically, we'll keep trying to reinvent the wheel on this until we can reduce the demand for ivory. And Mark?
For some species, it's almost too late. When the buying stops...
When the buying stops.
When the buying stops.
When the buying stops.
Killing can too.
May I join all of you all in thanking Bob Nixon for the video. We're all looking forward, I know, to the full series. Thank you. It's now my honor to introduce and welcome on stage two of the longtime members of the United States Congress who have been very active in the International Conservation Caucus. Senator Tom Udall and Congressman Ed Royce. They are here to present the Teddy Roosevelt Award. Gentlemen.
Let me just begin by thanking all of you for being here. And my wife Marie and I must say it's an honor to be with you today, and especially an honor to be here with His Royal Highness and to acknowledge the great contributions that he has made. As a matter of fact, he was with the members of the United States Senate today, pressing them on this issue at a time when every hour 3 elephants are slaughtered on this planet, just as he presses heads of state around the world. And so we congratulate him on receiving the Teddy Roosevelt Award. As Theodore Roosevelt would say, cherish these natural wonders, cherish the natural resources, cherish the history and romance as a sacred heritage, a heritage for your children and your children's children. And His Royal Highness takes this to heart and carries this message around the world. The highest levels of governments must be invested, must be engaged, if we wish to see the drastic trends of poaching and wildlife trafficking reverse. The United Kingdom put their commitment on display, hosting the London Conference on the illegal wildlife trade. Conservation is not solely an African issue, and reducing the demand of these wildlife products isn't solely an Asian issue. The irreversible damage of poaching is a global issue. What troubles me most as chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee is the transnational aspect of this illegal trade. They use the same sophisticated and dangerous networks as drug runners and arms traffickers. As His Royal Highness explains, we need to focus on breaking down these networks. If we break down the networks, these poachers won't have a means to get the wildlife products to market. And the ICCF and other NGOs in this room today are on the front lines confronting this crisis. They have done an excellent job in exposing the severity of the problem. And for conservation to be impactful, we need all stakeholders, governments, private sectors, NGOs, working together. Our world depends upon it, and so we congratulate those who are leading, such as His Royal Highness, and we congratulate him on this award tonight.
Good evening. My wife Jill and I are thrilled to be here with you this evening. Let's hear a round of applause for everybody here, Ed, who has helped this foundation grow and do the good work that it does. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Your Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, Your Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cornwall, welcome this evening to the United States of America. It's an honor to be here to present this award to a true champion of the environment. You know, in New Mexico, the Navajo, the nation's largest Native American tribe, have a saying: when the land is sick, the people are sick. We rely on our natural systems for food, water, and shelter, for the very air we breathe. When we protect our environment, we protect ourselves. The need has never been more urgent. The world's population is approaching 9 billion people. Every night, 1 billion go to bed hungry. All life is connected. We are all connected. Conservation is not just a personal virtue, it is essential to our prosperity, to our security, and to our planet. His Royal Highness understands this, and we honor him for that here tonight. He is a bright light in what the other things that we have seen. He stands out for what he has done. And Your Royal Highness, I think you said it best in a speech earlier this year, and you said, "This is a battle about how we survive as a species on our one and only planet. It is therefore a battle we have to win, but it cannot be won by just some of us. It requires a united international effort." That is the Prince of Wales. That is a champion. You have fought that battle for over 4 decades. Your commitment has been on the world stage with the Prince's Rainforest Project, with addressing the great threat of climate change, and also closer to home with the Duchy Home Farm, a model of sustainable agriculture through organic farming. The Duchy Originals brand is well known for food that is good and that does good, raising $5 million annually for charity. Tastes good, is good, does good. I recommend their dark chocolate ginger biscuits. Sir, in America, that is known as a plug, and I'm happy to give it to you. Your Royal Highness, thank you for your dedication to a sustainable future, for your commitment that is lasting, that is steadfast, and that is an inspiration to all of us. It is my great privilege, with my fellow co-chair and friend, that we started this caucus together in a kitchen in Clay Shaw's house with John Tanner, to present the most prestigious award of this organization. We present the ICCF Teddy Roosevelt International Conservation Award to His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales.
I'd like to bring the other co-chairs of the caucus on stage we have with us tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great pleasure for both my wife and myself to join you this evening, albeit briefly. And I must say, coming back to the United States is always an enormous pleasure, and certainly to be met by such kindness, hospitality, and friendship is always wonderfully encouraging. And I suddenly realized the other day that, in fact, I've been coming to the United States for 45 years now, and look what it's done to me. And I must admit that my only anxiety about this evening is that I might just possibly send my wife to sleep during my speech, which, as I'm sure you all know, would be a fate worse than death. But whatever the case, I could not be more touched and flattered that such an important and bipartisan group as the International Conservation Caucus and its supporting foundation should have decided to give me so special an accolade, awarded in the name of one of the greatest and most far-sighted of conservationists, President Theodore Roosevelt. And if I may say so, I'm even more touched that you should have even noticed some of the things I've been trying to do over the years. At the beginning of the 20th century, as the frontier of the Americas West was disappearing, once common wildlife was disappearing with it. President Roosevelt intervened to halt this trend, and in the process created what has become known as the conservation movement in the United States. The actions he took laid firm foundations for conservation action over subsequent decades, and in many other countries around the world. The national parks and other protected areas that he had the foresight to establish have been replicated worldwide, leading to perhaps the greatest conservation success that the world has yet seen. Nearly 15% of the Earth's land area is now under some form of protection, which has helped to stem the loss of many ecosystems and species. While in the early 20th century, many Americans saw nature as limitless and ripe for exploitation, Roosevelt understood and described a different reality. He famously said, "The nation behaves well if it treats the natural resources as assets which it must turn over to the next generation increased and not impaired in value." During his presidency, Roosevelt created 5 national parks, 4 game reserves, refuges, 51 national bird reservations, and 150 national forests, protecting in total approximately 230 million acres of public land. He set in motion a positive worldwide trend of enormous importance. Yet we see all too clearly now that in the 21st century, nature is nonetheless in a serious state of decline. Now, a question that has exercised me for many more years than I care to remember is why this might be the case. One conclusion that I have reached is that a large part of the challenge relates not so much to whether we sufficiently appreciate the beauties and wonders of nature, but whether we regard nature as essential for human well-being. I repeatedly hear it said, as I'm sure you do, ladies and gentlemen, that looking after nature is too costly, a barrier to growth, and a danger to economic competitiveness. So long as this perspective prevails, then I fear the destruction of natural systems will be seen as in some way rational and an unavoidable price of progress. As President Roosevelt himself put it, the conservation of natural resources is the fundamental problem. Unless we solve that problem, it will avail us little to solve all others. In today's testing times, I believe we need a renewal of the kind of far-sighted leadership demonstrated by President Roosevelt. We need to move beyond creating reserves set aside for nature to a new approach that places our relationship with the natural world much closer to the day-to-day concerns of humanity. The health of nature and the security of humankind are more inextricably linked than we sometimes realize. So it is essential to our well-being and ultimately to our survival that we address them together. This connection is something that I've sought to advance through my own modest efforts, including the work of my International Sustainability Unit. And incidentally, by a curious coincidence, the director of my ISU, Justin Mundy, who's here this evening, is the great-great-nephew of Gifford Pinchot, the governor of Pennsylvania, who also, under the leadership of President Roosevelt, established the U.S. Forest Service. I have sought, then, to advance this connection because I believe the primary challenge of our times is to find ways in which the natural systems and resources on which we depend can be sustained to support our needs indefinitely into the future, while maintaining the incredible diversity of life on Earth. Despite the evident challenges, there are nevertheless signs that the seemingly insoluble conundrums can be effectively addressed in a number of areas. One of the greatest challenges and priorities, of course, is the establishment of genuinely sustainable fisheries at a time when so many fish stocks are in serious long-term decline. Since 2010, my ISU has been working to establish consensus on how best to rebuild stocks so as, among other things, to protect the livelihoods of coastal communities and to enhance food security. The potential to do this is underlined through many examples where it is already happening, including here in the United States, such as the recovery and sustainable use of the Morro Bay fishery, Gulf of Mexico red snapper, and Pacific halibut stocks. So much can be achieved through taking an approach that goes beyond trading economic and ecological goals against one another, and instead finds a way to integrate them. As I see it, these and other breakthroughs, such as the U.S. Magnuson-Stevens Act, are not a barrier to economic and social aspirations, but rather a means of achieving them. And in this regard, I was particularly delighted to learn of the recent announcement by the U.S. government that it would require all U.S. agencies to track all fish and seafood imports and establish a system for American consensus to determine where fish and seafood have been caught, by whom, and how. This, if I may say so, ladies and gentlemen, is a tremendous step forward in the fight against illegal fishing, and I very much hope will be copied by other countries. Now, I need hardly say that collective action by governments is absolutely crucial when natural and marine ecosystems are under such pressure globally, including through treaties such as the Law of the Sea and the Agreement on the Conservation of Albatrosses and Petrels. Whilst I am well aware that the United States has not yet ratified these important measures, I suspect that with the help of the International Conservation Caucus, the kind of leadership you have shown at home in protecting the marine environment would be a welcome inspiration towards making these international agreements more effective. President Roosevelt was very much ahead of his time in saying that conservation means development as much as it does protection. In some quarters, I am led to believe that these words would still be somewhat controversial, but one has to be encouraged by the way that many people working to end deforestation, in particular, now seek to embed economically rational strategies so as simultaneously to achieve good development and conservation outcomes. My ISU, through what became known as the Prince's Rainforest Project, sought positive action in this arena through the aim of making the forests worth more alive than dead. Again, progress in different parts of the world shows what is possible through good leadership. And in this regard, I am particularly sorry that Mr. Jens Stoltenberg, the former Prime Minister of Norway, who achieved so much on this agenda, was not able to be here this evening. His work helped to establish the fundamental economic connections between forest conservation and human well-being, and he is, if I may say so, a far more worthy recipient of the award you've so kindly just bestowed on me. His current role as Secretary General of NATO is one of supreme importance, and we are all incredibly fortunate to have someone of his stature and wisdom in such a position at this time. In the last year, ladies and gentlemen, my ISU has helped to convene a series of international conferences that for the first time address the linkages between the illegal trade in wildlife and both economic stability and national security. And again, if I may say so, it is enormously heartening that the United States is providing such great leadership in this area through addressing the threat of skyrocketing demand facilitated by organized criminals and, in some cases, terrorist groups for elephant tusks, rhino horn, and tiger parts by creating a presidential task force and a national strategy on wildlife trafficking. It is clear that both parties are working well together to develop solutions to this most dire of problems, and I can only hope that the International Conservation Caucus will build on this very important work at home and overseas, while continuing to integrate it into international assistance, defense and security programs. As a complementary effort, my ISU, together with 8 of the world's largest multinational financial institutions, the UN Office on Drugs and Crime and Interpol, has recently issued a report containing recommendations for governments, financial institutions, and others that will allow the financial system to use all available tools against money laundering and other financial crime related to the illegal wildlife trade. In response to these recommendations, key governments participating next week in the Botswana Conference on the Illegal Wildlife Trade will pledge for the first time to follow aggressively the money from wildlife crime. In addition, I'm proud to say that these issues are becoming an hereditary feature in my family. And my eldest son, who is working very hard on in this area, recently formed a task force chaired by the former British Foreign Secretary William Hague to examine the transport industry's role in the illegal wildlife trade and identify ways that the sector can break the chain between suppliers and consumers. And he'll be very pleased to know you all agree, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm also pleased to be able to tell you that after an abortive attempt in the past years to gain enough support to tackle this issue, my ISU has embarked on a new work stream to look at solutions to the problem of plastic waste in the marine environment. And just yesterday, here in Washington, I attended a meeting the ISU co-hosted with the Global Oceans Commission to discuss this enormous challenge. The participants, representing private companies, NGOs, and governments, expressed their willingness to work together to scale up both the immediate actions to stop the flow of waste into the oceans and those longer-term actions needed to begin the transition across the plastics value chain to a more circular and less wasteful system. My ISU has equally embraced activities that at first sight might seem a little remote from traditional conservation concerns. This has involved joining with my Foundation for Building Community in looking at this case of cities and the worldwide problems caused by ever greater urbanization. By addressing the question of how towns and cities might be developed in harmonious coexistence with their rural hinterlands, we are finding ways to reach more resilient and sustainable outcomes, while at the same time more effectively conserving nature. And in this case, part of the positive synergy arises from how city regions can gain a better understanding of the role of healthy ecosystems in the supply of their food and water. And ladies and gentlemen, while questions linked with fishing, deforestation, declining wildlife, and sustainable cities might seem like a disparate hodgepodge of environmental concerns, the common factor is that they can only be resolved through the kind of integrated thinking and planning that includes genuine community participation, aided by the realization that at the end of the day, these issues are also, at heart, security, social, and economic matters. The question then, ladies and gentlemen, is how can we speed up that integrated thinking while there is still time to do so? One thing I believe to be vital is leadership. It is for this reason that so many people around the world are, for instance, waiting with anticipation for His Holiness the Pope's forthcoming encyclical letter on human ecology. I know how fostering leadership, that all too rare quality, is one of the core concerns of the International Conservation Caucus. And it seems to me that your bipartisan efforts in this arena, which are virtually unique in this day and age, could not be more important. The same thing must be said about your work to show how, in the end, conservation relates to the fundamental concerns of societies and governments, including the well-being of citizens, their health, security, nutrition, and prospects for continued economic development, all of which ultimately depend on the successful functioning of nature's own unique economy and biodiversity. Ladies and gentlemen, the world has looked to the United States for leadership in so many challenging circumstances in the past. However, today we are faced by truly exceptional challenges and threats, a veritable perfect storm, which, if not met by strong, decisive, and far-sighted leadership, could overwhelm our capacity to rectify the damage and thereby destroy our grandchildren's future inheritance. America's impact is profound, and it is my and many others' fervent hope that you will continue to inspire others, both at home and on the global stage. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I think we can all agree those were inspiring remarks delivered by a very extraordinary individual. I want to welcome now to the lectern a tireless leader in the Senate. He's co-chair of the International Conservation Caucus and founder of the Senate Oceans Caucus. We heard what His Royal Highness said about the oceans. This man has worked tirelessly to protect, defend, and foster the Ocean Caucus. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse.
Good evening. May I first join all of my colleagues in our appreciation to their Royal Highnesses, the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall, for joining us tonight and for their worldwide work on behalf of the environment we humans inhabit and depend on, and for tonight's thoughtful and inspiring remarks. Let me also recognize my colleagues in the Senate. You have already met Senator Udall. Senator Portman is going to follow me, and Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming is here with his wife, Bobby. And I have the pleasure of being accompanied by my wife, Sandra, Dr. Whitehouse, who is a marine biologist. And perhaps not completely unrelatedly, thank you, Sam. Perhaps not completely unrelatedly, I am the co-chair of the United States Senate Oceans Caucus, which seeks to raise awareness of the dangers facing our oceans and our coasts, on which so many people around the world depend, and which right now are sending such strong and stern signals of man-made climate change's effects. I would like to thank the ICCF, all of you, for a few years ago expanding to launch the Oceans Caucus Foundation. Your support has enabled bipartisan action in Congress. You have made a difference. With the strong support of ICCF, the Senate Oceans Caucus built bipartisan support for the 4 international fisheries management treaties approved by the Senate last year to stop pirate fishing. That may not seem like a lot, but in our current gridlock, you have to go back 9 years to find the previous 4 treaties, and we did this in an afternoon. The Oceans Caucus is now working to improve the collection of ocean data against the accelerating ocean changes we see, and to address the crisis, the plague of marine debris. There is much to be done.
I will leave you with the words of the man for whom His Royal Highness's award tonight is named. A century ago, President Theodore Roosevelt issued a warning. One distinguishing characteristic of really civilized men is foresight, he said. We have to, as a nation, exercise foresight for this nation in the future. And if we do not exercise that foresight, dark will be that future. And on a night that is bi-sovereign as well as bipartisan, let me add a quote from a great leader of Great Britain, Sir Winston Churchill. Owing to past neglect, in the face of the plainest warnings, we have now entered upon a period of danger. The era of procrastination, of half measures, of soothing and baffling expedients, of delays, is coming to its close. In its place, we are entering a period of consequences. We cannot avoid this period. We are in it now. Let us be in it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. I now would like to bring on stage and introduce another co-chair in the Senate of the ICCF, the International Conservation Caucus. Senator Rob Portman has been a strong leader. He works in a bipartisan way on these issues. He's someone that I think many people can turn to and look for guidance, but I'd also say this about Senator Portman. He's one of those guys that talks softly but carries a big stick. Senator Portman.
Connie, thank you very much. It's great to be here again at the Gala, and what an amazing evening, huh? So to His Royal Highness, congratulations on receiving the award tonight, and more importantly for all of his great work he has done in bringing together the private sector, government, NGO community to address some of the international conservation problems that this group, ICCF, focuses on. It's good to be here with my friend Sheldon Whitehouse, who's one of our co-chairs. I think you've already heard from Senator Udall, and Senator Burr is our other co-chair. We've made some good progress together over the years in this group, and there's, of course, much, much more to do. I was looking at the accomplishments of the Prince of Wales, and it includes a lot of work on rainforests. And through his Rainforest Alliance, he is working to try to convince countries that it's in their interest to protect their rainforests, and it certainly is. But there's something that this group has been very involved with over the years. It's called the Tropical Forest Conservation Act, and it's a very specific measure. Some call it the Debt for Nature swap, where the United States government says if a country is willing to protect rainforest, they can do so with local currency in exchange for retiring some of the debt, agriculture debt or USAID debt that they may owe the United States of America. This legislation has been in place now for about 15 years, and I'm proud to tell you tonight that through that legislation, we have managed to protect over 17 million acres of tropical forests around the world. That's pretty good. And what I love about the legislation is it was bipartisan from the start, of course, almost nonpartisan, and that's how things get done around here, but also it's about national security, and it's about economic security and sustainability for these countries. By getting that debt off their books, of course, it helps their economy, and it helps them to, frankly, take some pressure off of the development of the tropical forests and the burning of tropical forests. And it also happens to help in terms of national security because we develop stronger relationships with these countries who are some of our great allies around the world. So that's the kind of cooperation that we need globally. I know it fits well with the recipient of the Teddy Roosevelt Award tonight. I saw that Sheldon Whitehouse quoted from Teddy Roosevelt, and so did Connie for that matter, speaking softly and carrying a big stick. But here's my Roosevelt quote for the night. This was from Teddy. He said to the American people, "Here is your country. Cherish these national wonders. Cherish the natural resources. Cherish the history and the romance as a secret heritage for your children and your children's children." Pretty good counsel for us. I think the same could be said of the globe. And the same could be said of our mission that all of us have, to cherish those wonders, to protect them for this generation and the next. Thank you all for your support, and good night.
It gives me, as a Tennessean, a particular pleasure to introduce International Paper, the largest paper company in the world, and a company that is leading the way in using sustainable business practices and conserving forest around the world. We have a short video. May I invite your attention to the video, please?
International Paper's original founding required us to have a sustainability view. Sustainable forestry and the sustainable use of raw materials is a lifeblood of our company, so it's something that we've been doing forever. As the world's largest packaging and paper company, International Paper's sustainability begins in the responsibly managed working forest, where we source the wood fiber to make our products. Around the globe, IP is engaged in a broad range of efforts to protect and conserve forest resources, promote sustainable forest management practices, and encourage third-party certification.
You know, there's something primal about forests. The colors, the sights, the sounds, the air. Forests secure the water that we drink. They supply the oxygen that we breathe. They are fundamental to life on Earth. And so at WWF, we built partnerships with the world's leading companies to change the way we look at forests, how we value forests, and how we source products from the forests. And we couldn't be more proud of our partnership with International Paper, which, along many, many lines, is making a huge difference in the world. IP is working with us to set standards for their sourcing of wood fiber products in the enforcement and implementation of the Lacey Act.
Basically, the issue was stopping illegal logging and protecting American jobs, and International Paper was at the forefront of that.
International Paper is also bringing together private forest landowners to set goals on certification programs. They are on target right now for becoming one of the biggest suppliers of FSC products in the world.
Over the past decade, IP has protected roughly 1.5 million acres of U.S. forest land through donations, land sales, and conservation easements to state and federal agencies and environmental groups. Through a historic agreement between IP, the Conservation Fund, and the Nature Conservancy, more than 200,000 acres of forest lands across 10 states were protected in the largest private land conservation sale in the history of the U.S. South.
International Paper and the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation created a historic partnership a couple of years ago. The Forest Land Stewards Initiative will restore 200,000 acres of forest in the Southeast. It will protect nearly 15,000 acres of land permanently and help to bring back more than 10 important species in those environments. International Paper is making a $7.5 million commitment to the Forest Land Stewards Program. That $7.5 million is going to leverage an additional $23 million for an overall conservation impact of $30 million.
In the case of International Paper, you have a company that's a manager of 1.5 million acres of forested land that we all enjoy in terms of outdoor recreation, hunting and fishing, with a conservation ethic That's a very important act of stewardship for Tennesseans and other Americans, and it's good to have a great outdoors company headquartered in Memphis.
In Poland, International Paper has engaged in a project with local farmers to develop a biomass plantation, which produces a sustainable supply of wood for our facility at Kwidzyn. This helps Poland deliver on its renewable energy targets and provides a valuable economic boost to the local farming community. In India, International Paper celebrated the 1 billionth sapling produced for farmers as part of a long-running farm forestry program. It's a great success for both International Paper and the community. It ensures a sustainable source of wood fiber for our mills and provides a valuable source of income for local farmers. In Brazil, International Paper has developed eucalyptus plantations that produce high-quality, fast-growing trees. These plantation forests are renewable and are the sole source of wood fiber for our Brazil operations. International Paper has also established a private natural heritage reserve in Brazil to conserve biodiversity and conduct research on 2,000 acres of high conservation value forests the company owns. Whether in the U.S. or around the globe, stewardship of forest land and natural resources is ingrained in International Paper's DNA. Ensuring forests continue to thrive globally is a key part of our commitment for a better tomorrow. We are proud of International Paper's legacy of responsible and sustainable use of natural resources around the world. For more than 116 years, these values have been at our core, and they will continue to guide International Paper as we move forward toward an even brighter future.
Next, we would like to welcome on stage our newest co-chair of the International Conservation Caucus to present the ICCF Business Leadership Award. Please welcome the Honorable Henry Cuellar, representative from Texas.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to present the Conservation Leadership in Business Award. First, I would like to thank the ICCF for its leadership and putting the priority to make sure that we have the private-public international partnerships that are so important to make sure that we provide stewardship in the natural resource utilization, poverty reduction, which is so important to our world. Public-private partnerships offer the level of expertise and innovation that are so few and examples that we have to make sure that we have a lot. Whether it is through the expansion of community water sanitation or the arrangement or taking care of the management of the forest, which is so important to protect. Public-private partnerships have revolutionized the way that the world protects its environment. Therefore, it is my honor to present the Conservation Leadership Business Award to International Paper for the high standard it has set for responsible and sustainable business practices, particularly in the sustainable forestry around the world. International Paper's efforts are consistent with those of the ICCF core, the Teddy Roosevelt approach, that shows that you can both preserve and wisely use the resources and protect the environment while lifting the people in communities in the U.S. and across the world. International Paper is leading by example. The award is a testament to the impact that they're having and they will continue to have while promoting conservation and responsible resources. Those efforts, as you saw in the video, stopping illegal logging, protecting over 200,000 acres of U.S. forest lands, the U.S. conservation efforts in Poland, India, Brazil, and the partnership that it has with so many organizations that reflect the International Paper's exemplary role as a good corporate world citizen. This award is to honor International Paper, but it should also serve as an example and as a challenge to the business community to strive for more sustainable business practices. This public-private partnership shows that we have to highlight the efforts of companies like International Paper. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to present this award to Mark Sutton, the CEO of International Paper, who has been with his company from the very beginning in 1985, where he started off as an engineer in Pineville, Louisiana mill. So, Mark, I want to thank you. We all want to thank you and International Paper for the great work that you've done. And ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a great welcome and thank you so much.
Good evening. My wife Lori and I are very happy to be here with you tonight on a special evening. And on behalf of International Paper and our 58,000 employees worldwide, we're honored to accept the International Conservation Caucus Foundation Leadership Award for Business. For more than 116 years, International Paper has been focused on conservation and sustainability, with continuous improvement as a driving force toward our economic, environmental, and social priorities. At IP, we like to say, we make what matters. We make the boxes that drive the economy in which we live each and every day. These boxes carry fresh food to the local market, as well as your latest online order right to your doorstep. We also make the cups that hold the coffee you drink every morning, as well as the paper on which your child's graduation certificate is printed on. Our products are used by some of the biggest, most successful global brands in commerce. Several of those leaders are represented in this room tonight. But without healthy forests to make these products, we no longer have a company. Healthy forests are essential to ensuring a sustainable supply of raw materials for our mills. Healthy forests also provide ongoing source of income for landowners, which lifts up the local communities in which we do business and provides the vital environmental and ecological benefits we all enjoy. As you saw in the video, our company is active in partnerships and projects in the U.S. and around the world, focused on forest conservation and sustainable forestry. As a global leader, we have a responsibility to identify innovative and sustainable forestry solutions. IP purchases 71 million tons of wood fiber and pulp around the world each year. We are committed to a sustainable supply chain wherever we operate. For IP, that means leading and promoting responsible forest management principles and third-party certification systems like FSC and SFI. That also means being a leader in eliminating illegal logging through strong support for effective laws like the Lacey Act in the United States. And strongly supporting anti-illegal logging language in the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership trade deals. Through our close work with partners that share our values, conservation and environmental groups, global customers, and suppliers, we are finding solutions and developing plans for additional improvements. These relationships are critical to International Paper. As I stated earlier, without the wise use of natural resources, the company that I've worked for the last 30 years would no longer be around. We know our conservation and sustainability efforts are making a difference, but we also know there's much more work to be done. I'm honored tonight to accept the ICCF Leadership in Business Award on behalf of International Paper. And I want you to know that International Paper is committed to the environment, committed to being a strong steward of the land, and committed to doing the right thing for the right reasons. At the end of the day,
We owe it to our children, we owe it to their children, and we owe it to ourselves to make a difference for the planet that we all share. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Everybody probably knows our founder, David Barron, very, very well, and wanted to... Now, everybody knows I also went to get an MBA degree, therefore I'm smart enough not to give him the microphone right now. I did want to thank one person here who really is the rock of the organization, the executive producer of this gala, the vice president of ICCF Africa, and I'd like to say really the CEO of the organization, and that is Susan Lilas. I don't know where Susan Lilas is. Susan has been with us from the very beginning and has always been the rock for David and I in doing anything. And she has, whether it's helping on missions or putting together an event like this. I'd also like to thank one more staffer tonight, which is Brian Parham, who is responsible for these beautiful publications that you have now to take home and memorize and will be quizzed on next week. So, Brian, I'm not sure where you are, but thank you for all your tireless effort as well. It's so wonderful to see such a diverse group of members of Congress, Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, liberals, business leaders, and NGO leaders, all striving to try to make this a better planet, to expand our economy, and to give a better life to our children. So thank you so much for being here tonight, and God bless you. God bless America.